didn't sign in.
My name
Got
is
that?
Luke Robinson. I decided to do a cheap plug and wear my WolfPack Fitness hoodie. So I run WolfPack Fitness. It's an outdoor gym. I have a couple certifications in nutrition. And what makes me a little bit of a non-traditional fitness instructor and nutritionist is, one, I'm not very obsessed with it. My social media is mostly my dog and fishing. And I see a lot of fitness professionals on social media is basically them with Starbucks or their ass or something like that. And then they say, oh, I'm about female empowerment. But really, as we know, it's almost like the makeup artist in the mall, like at Macy's. They almost make you feel worse about yourself by always showing how awesome they are. So what I like to do is put an emphasis on, one, real world strength and nutrition strategies. And what that means is, to me, is if you are a busy mom or dad with chores, sports, work, all that, what could you do in the least amount of time? So I value efficiency versus, I work out every day, 2 hours a day. I like to see the people who go, I work out 2 or 3 times a week. I've learned to make my social life work for me in terms of nutrition. So they value efficiency instead of how much they can throw at nutrition and fitness. So I want people to have, again, a quote-unquote real life. So the first thing I want to do, though, is there's so much misinformation out there where a lot of people don't even know the terms that they hear all the time. And I want to make sure we're speaking the same language. So the first thing, when people go, I'm sure almost everybody said, oh, I look at carbs and it makes me fat. Well, a lot of people don't even know what foods fall under which category. Your big 3 categories are protein, carbohydrates, and fats. So all vegetables are carbohydrates. And all carbohydrates end up getting digested into your bloodstream as a simple sugar. So if you've ever said carbs make me fat, then you realize right now, like, oh shoot, that's not exactly the case. Okay, because broccoli is a carb, green beans are carbs, asparagus are carbs, cauliflower are carbs, that's all they are. So this is a little cheat sheet of your big 3, proteins, all your meats, eggs, protein powder, yogurt, cottage cheese. Those are your big bang for your buck protein sources. Carbohydrates, all your starches, rice, potatoes, breads, pasta, oats, fruit, quinoa, all your candies and sugars. Fats, all your nuts, seeds, and nut butters, avocado, real butter, all your oils, olive oil, coconut oil, and this is going to be an interesting one that we'll talk about later. A lot of the foods that people, it says pizza, a lot of the foods that people label as carbs, you're going to see are actually have a bigger percentage of fat in them than carbohydrates. So this is another really interesting thing, and it's like, how many of you grow up, become an adult, and you're like, shoot, I never learned to do taxes. And then you think, why didn't we learn that in school? Or how valuable it would have been to learn how to have your own garden. So this is another thing that I wish was kind of taught, and there's a counterbalance, because you want people to become neurotic about food, but I think there's value in learning some basic information. So protein and carbohydrates both have 4 calories per gram. Fat has 9 calories per gram. So what that means is when you look on a nutrition label, if it said chicken breast, 1 chicken breast had 20 grams of protein. You'd take your 20 grams of protein and multiply it by 4 to get 80 calories. So in carbohydrates, if you saw the back of a label and it said 1 slice of bread had 15 grams of carbs, you'd take 15 times 4 calories per gram and you'd get 60. Fats, however, have 9 calories per gram. So they're what we call more calorically dense. So if you looked on the back of a nutrition label of butter and it said 1 tablespoon has 11 grams of fat, you'd go 11 times 9 equals 99. So before we talk about the foods that I mentioned where they're actually mislabeled, I just want you to know what each one does in the body and why it's important. So protein helps build and retain lean muscle tissue. This is especially important if you're trying to diet while keeping lean muscle, because the people who end up just under-eat, they're calorie counting, but they're not concerned about where they come from, you can actually end up what's called skinny fat, where you don't have that tight toned look that you want. Also keeps your bones strong and healthy, and it keeps your immune system strong and healthy. Carbohydrates, it's the easiest accessible source of energy for workouts, and this is a big one a lot of people don't know about. Low-carb dieting actually mimics starvation hormonally. When your body's in a starving state, one of the first things it does, this is chronically, not one day. You'd have to be doing this for 4 to 6 weeks of either ultra-low-carb dieting or hardly eating. Your thyroid controls your metabolic rate. So your basal metabolic rate is what I call coma calories. How much energy, how many calories your body would burn if you were in a coma just standing here, okay? So, ultra-low-carb dieting and or starvation will lower your thyroid production and therefore lower your metabolic rate a little bit. So suppose normally your body burned 1,500 calories if I just stood here, just to keep you alive. After about 4 to 6 weeks of ultra-low-carb dieting with no carb spikes during that time, your body might start burning 1,300 calories instead of 1,500. So this is why people who start a diet and they really cut calories like crazy, about at the 4 to 6 week mark they have that first plateau and they don't really know what was happening. So carbohydrates, even if you're on a low carb diet, having regularly scheduled days where you bring your carbs up actually helps convert some of your key thyroid hormones that keep your metabolism cranking. So the long and short of that is too low carb for too long can make your basal metabolic rate, the amount of calories you burn just standing here, go down. Fats, your brain is made up of 70% fat, so healthy fats, again people are like, well, what makes a healthy fat? Natural sources of fat help keep your brain and therefore a lot of your hormone production optimal. And the most important ones are testosterone and estrogen. So not having enough healthy fats can lower your testosterone levels, and even in women, you want to have optimal testosterone levels. It makes it much easier to burn fat and build muscle. So we've kind of established what each food is. Meats, eggs, cottage cheese, yogurt are our proteins. Starches, fruit, sugars are our carbs. Fats, nut butters, nuts, avocado, butter, olive oil. We've established what each one does. Now I want to talk to you about what a typical portion looks like. So, for protein, if it's meat, it's about palm-sized cut. Would be a good portion size that gets you about 20 to 30 grams of protein. For vegetables, about a fist-sized portion. For smart carbs, and we're calling smart carbs natural foods. Rice, potato, fruit. Those are all natural sources of carbohydrates that are in their simplest form. About a cupped palmful, which would be like a half cup of rice or potatoes or any one piece of fruit. And then for healthy fats, about a thumb size if it's nuts, which would also be like a tablespoon if it's any nut butter, real butter, any oils, about a tablespoon is 1 serving. So, we'll skip the men. So, a few myth busts before we get
lost.
Yeah.
Class.
Myth busting. Because this is also important, so we're speaking the same language, we're on the same page. Eating after 6 p.m. does not make you fat. If a food had 200 calories at 5:59, 200 calories at 5:59, at 6:01 there wasn't a magic calorie wizard that turns it into 500, okay? Eating carbs at night or after 6 p.m. does not make you fat. Breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. 7 small meals does not stoke a metabolic furnace. Sugar does not make you fat. Dietary fat does not make you fat. So what does matter then? What does?
Ice cream!
So we'll save that question, the what does matter, for just a few more slides. But surely sugar has become like the big bad demon. Well, every single strand of DNA in your body has sugar in it. It is essential to life. So sugars are a type of carbohydrate. Just like all fruits, all vegetables, and their fiber are all subsects of carbohydrates. So here's carbohydrate, or big heading. All potatoes, rice, sweet potatoes, every fruit in the world, every vegetable in the world, every straight candy in the world. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate that your body can't digest. So it's saying, for instance, of this banana, a banana is all carbohydrates. 13% of it is a type of carbohydrate, fiber, that your body can't digest. So most people don't even know that much. They just hear fiber's good for you. So fiber is a type of carbohydrate. It's the part that your body can't actually digest and absorb. So that 13% of the calories from the banana don't count. And that's the Atkins subtraction. If anybody's ever done Atkins, you take your carbs minus your fiber. Your body can't digest it, it just goes through you. So, most carbohydrates, again with the exception of fiber because your body can't digest it, no matter how much of a complex carbohydrate, you hear complex carbohydrates are better for you. Complex carbohydrates are whole foods and it refers to the carbohydrate molecule, but once it's broken down by your stomach enzymes, they all end up as simple sugars. So if we're going to say sugars are the devil, every vegetable you have gets broken down into your bloodstream into a simple sugar. So surely though, sugar is the devil, right? No, sugar is pretty much sugar, whether it comes from apples or from table sugar. The same amount of sugar hits your blood as glucose, which is just another term for once sugar's been digested in your bloodstream, it's called glucose. So once digested and absorbed, the same stuff appears in your blood. One medium-sized apple has 25 grams of carbs. 1 teaspoon of straight sugar has 4.2 grams of carbs. So 1 apple equals about 6 times 4.2 teaspoons of sugar. Now what does this mean? If you were doing everything else equal, you had a nutritionist or nutrition coach, they've set up your diet so you know exactly or about how many calories it takes your body to lose weight, and everything is the same. You're doing a nice egg and egg white omelet for breakfast, you're doing a nice chicken salad with just the right amount of dressing for lunch, you're doing a steak with steamed broccoli and sweet potato for dinner, and at the end of the day, you want to choose between an apple or, let's imagine this is pixie stick powder, okay? You would have the same exact rate of fat loss. This does not magically get multiplied. Again, there's no evil sugar wizard who can defy the laws of thermodynamics and make this equal more than it is. So, when you eat an apple though, you get other nutrients alongside the sugar, plus the fiber in the apple slows down the digestion and absorption of the sugar. So you get less of a blood sugar spike. And when you have a big spike and a big crash, that's when if you eat a piece of cake and all of a sudden, or your big Thanksgiving meal after you have dessert and you want to take a nap, that happens from big spikes and big crashes. So I'm not suggesting that there's not health benefits, vitamins and minerals in the apple that aren't in the table sugar. But if it comes to fat loss itself, and you were doing everything else the same and it just came between your apple or your sugar, and you were choosing one or the other, you would have identical rates of fat loss. So, but now imagine you had that pixie stick powder and it sends you into a tizzy. You're like, there's a 24-hour Citgo just down the street from the house and now I want Pop-Tarts or whatever. But the apple makes you feel full, you have to chew it more, and you're satisfied. Then again, the apple might be the better choice. So, here's where this big statement, are carbs making you fat? This is kind of the aha moment. Anytime I eat carbs, I get fat. And people think donuts, pizza, chips, even Tostitos nacho chips, cookies, cake, pies, they all have more calories from fat than they do from carbohydrates. The misunderstanding when you look in the label, if we hadn't discussed how many calories per gram, you see 51 grams of carbs, 25 grams of fat, so you might go, oh, it's half. Well, remember, our carbohydrates get multiplied by 4 calories per gram. This gets multiplied by 9. So over half the calories from the donut, pizza, French fries, once they're dipped in their oil, cookies, cake, a Hershey's bar, just a regular Hershey's bar, not even peanut butter cups. More calories from fat than from carbs. So all these foods that you've been saying, carbs make me, son of a bitch, that's what it is. It's actually that they have a lot of calories because they have a lot of carbs and fat, which guess what? Makes it extra, extra tasty. It attenuates to all those chemicals in your brain that makes you extra, extra happy. And we even have marketing from fast food companies that basically tell you exact good mood food, right? Yeah, you feel really good in the short term, but the meal only ends once the guilt and shame sets in, right? So, I just try to shine some light that what's actually doing the, what's actually kind of contributing. The contributing factor, these foods are called hyperpalatable foods. It means they're very easy to overeat on total calories because one, they're packed with a lot of calories because they have a ton of carbs and a ton of fat. The other prerequisites for a food to be labeled hyperpalatable is it goes down smooth. Ice cream goes down smooth. Nice greasy pizza goes down smooth. If I were to have you eat a plain baked potato, and then I put potatoes with sour cream, butter, and bacon bits, how much of the regular bland potato could you eat versus how much could you crush of that nice whipped mashed potatoes? The debate will never be for me what tastes better. I know what tastes better. That's not what this is about. It's about understanding why it's tough to stop. Remember, someone's job is to make sure that food is as tasty, addictive as possible to you. Someone's job at these companies, a whole division, to make sure that you want to eat more and not stop. So, the big question we ask, so what does matter? How do all these diets work? Low carb, eat fewer carbs, more protein and fats, ultimately ends up creating a caloric deficit. Ketogenic, almost no carbs, some protein and mostly fats. If it works, it's because you're creating a caloric deficit. Low fat, create a caloric deficit. Intermittent fasting, you're only eating during a certain period of time. For some people, it makes them eat less calories. Weight Watchers use a points-based system to help you understand portion control for your body. You do it right, you create a caloric deficit. Paleo, only minimally processed foods. If you do it right, you create a caloric deficit. So, are calories the only thing that matter? No, because we talked about initially what each one does for your body. Okay? Protein helps keep your muscle and your immune system strong. Carbs give you energy, keeps your thyroid strong. Healthy fats keep your brain function and hormones optimal. So I'm not suggesting that carbs are all that matter, calories are all that matter, but for fat loss, as much as it's tough to hear, it does. I would never suggest strict calorie counting because of what each nutrient does for your body. But I wanted to show you something that's hot in the news right now, and a lot of people are trying the ketogenic diet. First of all, it's been around for almost 100 years. It used to be used to treat epilepsy in like the 1920s. And also people with severe brain injuries. They found it helped restore some brain function. It's probably because of the healthy fats. But a ketogenic diet is about 75% fat, 5% carbs, and a little bit of protein, 20% protein. So this meal, T-bone steak with some butter on the steak, asparagus with some butter on the asparagus, and an avocado. So, can you still gain weight on a ketogenic diet? Absolutely, because how quick did we show that the fat calories add up? Because you multiply them by 9. Why do some people lose weight so fast, especially the first week of a ketogenic diet? Well, for every gram of carbohydrate that gets stored in your body, the average woman can store about 300 grams of carbs in their muscle cells. 1 to 3 grams of water gets carried into the cell with it. So, during your first week of low carb, your body's switching from using glucose, which are carbohydrates, sugar, to creating ketones. Ketones is an organic compound that your body uses in place of glucose. So basically the body's an amazing thing. It goes, we should be using glucose, we don't have it. It creates this organic compound out of your fat that your body can access for energy. So, why do people lose that sometimes 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pounds their first week of ultra low carb dieting? Because their body's using up the glucose. Remember I told you for every gram in your body of glucose, 1 to 3 grams of water gets stored in the cell. So as you're burning through that glucose, that water is getting expelled with it. So about 70 to 80% of the fat loss the first week of a ketogenic diet is just the water weight going out. But people attribute that to thinking, oh my God, there's some magic to this diet. Well, on a low-carb diet, what do most people start doing? They're replacing their junk food with more protein and veggies, which have less calories. So again, they misattribute it's the low carb that's the magic, when actually it was that they were adding in more low-calorie food that makes them feel full in place of the hyper-palatable foods that are tough to stop eating and are loaded with calories. This is a little sciencey, but I can make it pretty simple. So we said if you're eating carbohydrates, your body uses glucose for energy. Once you stop, your body starts creating ketones. It basically is a fake glucose. But here's what it does. It breaks down your fatty acid, and it converts it into ketones, and there's two parts, fatty acid and then glycerol. It's converted into glucose during a process called gluconeogenesis. This is a fancy way for saying that even when you have a bunch of ketones in your diet from doing low carb or keto, the body is amazing and it makes its own form of glucose out of the ketones. So it still makes its own simple sugar. Now, if you don't eat enough protein, your muscle tissues will be used to make the glucose that your body needs. So that's why I say it's important to keep your protein up, even if you're on a ketogenic diet, because if you don't have enough protein in your diet, your body will end up using the amino acids from protein to make that glucose. So some way or another, your body makes a version of sugar because it's essential to life. So even on a ketogenic diet, technically your body is still making this synthetic, so to speak, glucose out of the ketones. Kind of interesting. So now people go, so I'm just burning fat when I'm on a ketogenic diet? Well, this may be true, but we need to apply the context that you're eating significantly more fat and less carbohydrates. So you'll be burning more fat, but you're just burning the dietary fat that you're eating from the ketogenic diet. Unless you're in a caloric deficit on a ketogenic diet, then you may be burning some of the fat from your foods that you're eating and some body fat if you're not matching or exceeding your caloric needs. So again, even no matter what diet you're on, ultimately it depends on does that diet or does that nutrition strategy help you get in a caloric deficit. Keto, some vegetables, a lot of fat, a little bit of meat. Vegan, a lot of vegetables, no meat, a lot of fruit. Paleo, a little bit of meat, a little bit of carbs, a lot of vegetables. I think we can all agree that vegetables are good for you. Okay? So far you're like, all right, you're not telling me anything I don't really know. But what do all successful nutrition strategies have in common? They emphasize more whole food over junk food. They focus on lean protein and veggies, which eliminates nutrient deficiencies. So it gives you more energy, more focus, better sleep. So more whole food means you have to chew more. So it does a good job of helping control your appetite because your brain has time to catch up to your tummy. Emphasizes awareness and mindfulness. So when people are starting to think about, hey, is this whole food, is this processed food? One, they're just more aware of their choices, they're paying attention. And these foods regulate hunger and fullness cues. What that means is these hyperpalatable foods, you can eat so much before your brain even knows that it's too much. So a lot of things our mom told us, like, chew your food, slow, your brain takes 20 minutes for your belly to catch, those are true. So the best diet isn't any one of these, it's the one that helps you, that you enjoy the most, that you can stick to in the long term while making consistent, measurable progress. So the reason this slide's important, it gets you out of like the debates with your friends about which is better, oh this is this. Instead you can say, hey no, I feel best doing this and this has given me results. So I used to be, it happens a lot when you first get into something, it's like if you like a new song and you heard the song 3 months before someone else. And they go, oh, have you heard that new song by so-and-so? You're like, I listened to it on the album 3 months ago. So we get trying something that works for us and we think it's the end-all be-all and we talk about it with such passion and fervor and we blast everything else. So I'm suggesting that whatever works best for you is what you should be doing. Now, again, I know this isn't any like crazy mind-blowing stuff in terms of, all right, so far you told me to eat more protein and veggies. You know that. I'm going to get to your burning question in a second. But I wanted to show you about food volume, why whole foods are so much more effective. One slice of pizza, a little handful of French fries, a little handful of M&Ms has the same amount of calories as 2 chicken breasts, a ton of veggies, and a baked potato. So the beauty of this, when you understand that this is the same amount of calories, just a little bit of that, is you don't have to be starving at all. You should actually be more full if you're doing this right. So, the pro tip, eat a buttload of this stuff, eat these in moderation. So I want to show you some real world examples. This is an egg white and turkey sausage scramble with an apple. 300 calories. Your one Dunkin' Donuts sausage, egg and cheese croissant, 700 calories. P.S. The small Girl Scout cookie coffee, 700 calories. The large, 1,100. So this is where people go, I'm not overeating, right? They go, I'm not eating too much, and they're technically not wrong. They're not eating that much volume. So volume refers to how much space would it fill up in your stomach. So a common thing I hear is, I'm not eating that much though. Once they actually start realizing some of these sneaky calories coming in, they go, oh wow. What they meant by they're not eating that much is there actually isn't that much food going in, but there's a lot of calories going in because these foods have a ton of oil and fats, which are very calorically dense. Now I wanted to show you an example of, that was a healthy example on the plus side, right? Less calories. Now imagine someone goes, well, I've been eating clean. Grilled chicken salad, but they put an F-ton of oil on it. They loaded it with cheese, they loaded it with black olives. Again, none of these foods are bad, they just are a fat source, which have a lot of calories. They loaded it with walnuts, they loaded it with dried fruit. And they thought, these are all healthy foods, and they are. They're all nutritious. But just because something's nutritious doesn't mean it doesn't have calories. So this is an example of the other side of someone thinking they're eating clean when the Big Mac and fries had less calories than their super salad. So this is the I eat healthy but I'm not losing weight starter pack. A lot of nuts, ton of guacamole, dried fruit, super packed in shakes, pretzels, a bunch of oil, drowning their salad in healthy fats, but just because it's a healthy fat doesn't mean it doesn't have calories. So just to show you an example, 2 chicken breasts has the same amount of calories as 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 grande iced caramel macchiato, 1 packet of that ranch dressing is insane. Again, the debate isn't how it tastes, they're awesome, the tasty stuff. It's just, this is where it could be creeping in. Get to the good stuff, Luke. What about junk food and booze? That's what I really want to know about. Do I have to stop eating this stuff? Do I have to stop drinking? Well, before I get into that, I just want to talk about the successful fat loss mindsets. Flexible. Stop thinking as an all or nothing process. If you do that, you're actually more likely to have the binge and diet cycle because once you're bad, you just go off the deep end. Restraint. So it's saying, yeah, being flexible is great, but you also have to be an adult. You know that you can't eat cake all day. And then accepting. This is a big one. We must accept that eating healthy foods is not going to give your brain the same pleasure spike as junk foods. But it can start to shift hormonally. The more you eat healthy foods, the more your taste buds will actually restore an enjoyment for them. Everyone knows deep down inside you hate eating clean. How clean eating mentality can be harming, and this is what I was just talking about. Feelings of guilt and remorse associated with food. So then, once you're bad, you go way off the deep end. Then you end up being deficient in some micronutrients because you're cutting out everything, and then you're binging on junk, which doesn't have a lot of nutrients. Inflexibility with lifestyle, so you feel guilty about parties or vacation. Life is just one big guilt trip and misery for you. So, flexible dieting is the solution. Flexible dieting, a way of eating that prioritizes nutrient-dense food, keeps cravings at bay by allowing for 10 to 20% of junk or booze, an evidence-based dietary method for achieving sustainable results. It's not an excuse to eat whatever you want. So, do I have like 5 minutes, do you think?
We have a meeting at 12:30.
This room is reserved at 12:30. She's not here yet.
I'm almost done. Blast through. We'll keep, all right. So, flexible nutrition is this. It's just saying that what we talked about in the beginning, if something like your chicken breast had 20 to 30 grams of protein, that's the same as a scoop of protein powder. If your combination of rice and butter had 30 grams of carbs and 12 grams of fat, that's exactly the same as a Snickers bar. So we're saying, imagine for dinner one night, you had your chicken and veggies. So you had your chicken and veggies, you didn't want your rice and your cashews, you wanted a Snickers bar instead. They're almost identical, rice and with a tablespoon of butter, as the calories, carbs, and fat that's in a Snickers bar. Like we said with the apple and the sugar, there'd be no difference. You do that every now and then. Even once a day, wouldn't change anything. So this is what you were gonna eat. You were gonna have chicken, veggies, rice, and cashews. An equivalent meal would be a scoop of protein powder, a graham cracker, or basically make a s'more, wash it down with a protein shake. Would be almost identical. So, the easiest way to use this concept is to start, suppose you were at dinner one time and you said, I don't want to think about numbers, what's the simplest way? have a lean protein and veggies and eat that first, and then pick one serving of your favorite junk, not a whole pizza, okay? 1 or 2 slices. One, not a giant size candy bar, 1 snack bag of Cape Cod. This is those minis, which is, you might go, well, that's no fun. I'd rather have more rice and butter than a little mini cup of Ben & Jerry's. That's the beauty about it. Once you start being mindful, you start to realize what your choices are. Last concept, drinking. So, I'm not a wizard. I can't make this have less calories than it does. 1 margarita or 3 vodka sodas. Okay? Only have 285 calories in 3 vodka sodas, or you can have 1 margarita and have almost double that. So now you see why one night of crushing 3-4 margaritas and endless chips at margaritas, and you could have been eating healthy all week, and in that 3 drinks and a couple little things of your chips, and you've just crushed your caloric deficit for the week in that one meal, one dinner. How to not gain weight while drinking, while having a slice of Bill's Pizza at the end. My simple trick, I try to get till about noon not eating anything except black coffee, tea, or water. Then I just have protein and veggies for the rest of the day. So chicken and veggies, cottage cheese and veggies. If I go out to dinner, a lean steak, double veggies. Once I go out, I stick to hard liquor and 0-calorie mixers. Rum and Diet Coke works. Vodka and seltzer water works. At the end of the night, I still have room calorically for a slice of pizza. So, this is how the quick and dirty calculation for fat loss calories. You multiply your body weight by about 10 to 12. Most people, it's about 10. And this is just a place to start. So a 160-pound person should be able to lose fat eating 1,600 calories, not the 1,200 that you hear. Too low, you'll end up binging eventually because you're going to be starving. So, using our template that I showed at the beginning, that would mean if you had 3 meals just like that, you'd still be 500 calories short of 1,600. Okay? Sample fat loss day for a 160-pound person. 2 eggs and a third of a cup of egg whites in an omelet, spinach, peppers, tomatoes, onions, 1 apple. Mid-morning snack, a low-carb protein bar. Lunch, chicken, stir-fried, rice, cashews. Afternoon snack, bag of beef jerky, mixed veggies. Dinner, steak, asparagus, mashed sweet potato. Before bed, a strawberry non-fat Greek yogurt. It's not a sucky day. It's not starving. It's not just rabbit food. So, we know what to do. Now, what's going to decide whether we're going to do it or not? So, outcome goals don't work. It's when you go, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to squat more weight. I want to sleep better. Behavior goals are when you go, okay, what do I need to do to lose 10 pounds? What are the behaviors that I need to do? So, finishing up, last slide to summarize almost everything that we talked about today. How to eat for fat loss without counting calories. Emphasize protein and veggies with every meal. As much as you might think you're craving whatever, I know. I've been at times where, again, I've had nothing in the house, and I end up getting Ben & Jerry's and Pop-Tarts down the street at the 24-hour Sitco. But I promise, if you start every meal with protein and veggies, even if it's not your favorite, we've accepted the acceptance mindset. I understand that some people don't like veggies. I don't know. I'm not like, yeah, steamed veggies and salmon. But I know if I start my meal with that, I'll be able to differentiate between cravings and hunger. Have a few go-to meals that you're ready to go. I'm big on gratitude and shedding our first world mindset where you can have someone, I say, hey, for breakfast every day this week, have a nice egg white veggie omelet, 1 whole egg, because the yolk actually is good fat, and an apple. 3 days in, they go, what else can I eat? I'm bored. And I'm like, wait, what did you have for the last 10 years of your life every morning? Well, a mocha choca, latte, and a breakfast sandwich. I'm like, so every day? And you never once said you were bored. So you're not bored. It's not giving you the same high that your junk food was. I understand that. Like I said, I'll never debate you about whether this is tastier than a donut. I use a lot of mindset stuff where I go, could I look into the eyes of a starving little child and go, I was bored of eating eggs, egg whites, any veggie I wanted, and any fruit I wanted for 3 days. It'd be like spitting in their face and punching their dog, you know? So I use little tricks like that to be like, okay, start with this, have a few go-to meals, get familiar with your portion sizes, eat slowly. This is another behavior instead of outcome. Chewing slowly does amazing things for helping your brain recognize hunger and fullness cues. Know that hunger is not an emergency. Experience hunger for 30 to 60 minutes before a meal. If you've never tried that, and again, think of our first world versus third world example. There are some people who go, not even third world, there's people in Lewiston, there's people 5 minutes from us that don't go, Mom, what's for breakfast? Is there going to be breakfast today? So know that hunger is an emergency, and learning to sit with it can be a valuable tool. And then lastly, we do live in an amazing country where we do have so much, so don't deprive yourself, but be mindful of your trigger foods. Meaning you know now that if you can smartly work in your candy bar in your day, and every single day you could replace a cup of rice and a tablespoon of butter with a Snickers bar. 1 meal per day, nothing bad would happen, I promise. No evil sugar wizard is going to make the calories from that equal more than they do. So there doesn't have to be the deprivation and misery in thinking that this is a bad food. No, it's just food. You know that if you know the trade-off that this is going to be much more calorically dense, and you can't get away with as much. But if you check what's in a slice of pizza and you equate it to what you were going to have that day, you can have everything you've ever wanted, and even still drink and progress on your fat loss goals. Or I would say for some people, progress might not be fat loss, it might not be associating so much guilt with having one slice of pizza. There's lots of people who are very thin, who have very distorted body images, and for them, victory is knowing that they didn't do anything bad by having one of these foods. I know for the most of the female population, fat loss is a big goal, but I always like to finish with one important concept. If there's anybody in your life who's valuing your heart, mind, soul, character based on anything to do with your physical appearance, they probably, one, don't deserve to be in your life, and they certainly don't deserve to hold that power over you. I remind all of my clients, not just my ladies, but everybody, that I could give a damn what you do with your nutrition. I love them for them. Their heart, mind, soul will always matter infinitely more than anything they choose to do. This is your choice, not mine. I will never push my values or my way of life onto you. I care about the time I spend with people as human beings, not for what they're eating when I'm not with them, not my business. So these are real world strategies that if that is your goal, you kind of know some truth now, you know some strategies, but you also know that it should never define who you are as a person. And I think that's an important place to finish.
We got the room switched up, so if anybody has Q&A, don't feel like you have to leave.
I am.
No, we want to leave.
Right? Unless you have to leave, Luke. If you have
I do. I'm volunteering at the Auburn Public Library. My little therapy dog, this is his first day at the library. Kids with anxiety disorders and all that read to him.
Aww.
So, yeah.
I want the dog to come in next time.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, and I was like, I did bring some. I'm going to leave these here. This just has our WolfPack class schedule, social media stuff on it. If you wanted to grab one, but I do. I'm like running out of here. Thank you so much.
You can just call that quick share out.
Awesome.
That's all you have to do.
Thank you so much.